It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview James Cooper, who is a sports agent for the NFL. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, Brandon. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the honor.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to become a sports agent in the NFL?
Yeah, so this was something I didn't probably start thinking about till college, actually. My whole goal was really, of course, to get into the NFL. So that didn't happen. So I saw Drew Brees make $100 million, and figured, hey, somebody is probably negotiating that contract or his manager. So that's when I kind of decided, hey, let me pursue that role and become a sports agent and start doing my research from there. So yeah, thank Drew Brees. He's retired. But you made that 100 mil, and that's when I wanted to become a sports agent.
Can you talk about exactly what do you do, like, for the NFLPA?
Yeah, so I'm under the NFLPA as a certified contract advisor. So basically, as a sports agent, working on behalf of NFL players. So negotiating their contracts for the most part. That's what the NFLPA wants us to do. Make sure we have the best interests of those NFL players to negotiate their contract and get them the biggest dollar amounts. So that's the main part of it under the NFLPA. But then we also have other services that as a sports agent you try to offer your clients, such as like marketing and branding opportunities off the field, as well as like post-career planning there as well, helping them out with that, and then kind of steering them in the right direction with accountants or financial planners there as well when it comes down to the tax and the money and how you can really maximize upon your capital while you are in the NFL.
Can you talk about, of course, what the day-to-day is like as an NFL scout?
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily an NFL scout here per se, but I mean we kind of do some of the same type of similar things as an NFL scout, where we're researching and interviewing prospective, in our case, prospective clients. I mean, and their prospective NFL players. So no day to day, I would say almost look the same. I mean, one day, I mean, for me today, it could be just doing some research on a couple of guys, watching some film, at least about 2 or 3 games from that current year or even from the previous year. Just trying to do a whole evaluation on that player to see if he is draft worthy or not, and kind of getting a general projection on where he may fall in the NFL draft. And then you may have like a couple of meetings. That meetings could be over the phone with that potential player or players that you're already in contact with, just trying to further that relationship with that client or potential client, I would say. And that could be over the phone, it can be with Zoom these days, or even in person. So sometimes I may be on the road where I'm not in the city or in my hometown. I could be going to meet with that potential client or one of my current clients, I would say here as well, just trying to get those guys to the next level, or of course, maximize upon their off the field opportunities. So no day to day is the same, but I would say at the very least you are doing some type of research, some type of evaluating on a potential client or an NFL type of prospect.
Can you talk about, of course, the process leading up to the pro day and getting the scouts, the NFL scouts, to look at your players that you have?
Yeah, so with that, it comes down to I would say being relentless in that process. So typically, I mean, once after you sign that client, then of course they're more than likely are going to an all-star game. So what I'm doing is, of course, reaching out to my Rolodex or to the scouts that I know in the industry, letting them know, hey, they're going to be at this all-star game, participating on this day at this time. So really trying to get their name out there just in front of those scouts additional time, or at least let them know, hey, this player is going to be there, even though that scout may have that roster already, but still just trying to push those guys another time to say, hey, James Cooper is going to be at this event, Tropical Bowl, CGS, whatever the case may be. Then after, of course, like that overall like bowl game or showcase, then any type of film or numbers they get from that game, then of course I'm reaching out to the scouts again, letting them know like those official numbers because not every scout shows up to those type of events right after the season, like an All-Star game or showcase. So I want to make sure I'm getting those official numbers over to them, even though they may receive it. So it's now an additional time they may know about my specific client. Then after, of course, that those guys are in pre-draft training for the most part. So it's not a lot of push to the scouts, I would say, maybe during that time, except if your guy is under the radar, then you're just reaching out to those scouts with that athlete, three best game films, I would say, as well as like a highlight tape, just so they can do more of an evaluation on them. A highlight tape, what kind of pops? Okay, this kid is making some plays, so let me check out maybe 3 or 4 of his games from the season for me to look at as well, because what they're big on is like actual game film. It's not like high school recruiting where a highlight tape will make you stand out. Is going to come down to those full games. So throughout that time while they're in training, I'm kind of pushing that overall tape and that film to those scouts, especially under the radar guy or a guy that's potentially will go undrafted at the end of the day, and still even leading to their training before pro day, of course. And I'm still reaching out to those guys, letting them know, hey, this client, well, this specific guy will be performing at this pro day on such and such time, such and such day. And it also depends on the school. I mean, because last year I had a couple of guys to where their school wasn't hosting a pro day. So the big thing was kind of getting them into a bigger school. If it's like a Power Five program, so they're in front of all 32 NFL scouts compared to maybe 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. So it's really trying to push those guys and get them into like the bigger institutions, so they're in front of more scouts and be able to showcase their overall talent and ability. So it's really being relentless, just reaching out to the scouts, updating them constantly, just with new things and not bringing the same thing to the table leading up to the pro day.
Can you talk about, of course, the process of getting clients?
Yeah. So that's the hardest part, I would say, of the whole process is really kind of signing a player, because it goes back again down to the research, I would say, and you doing that evaluation. And you're never, I would say, 100% correct, because you may like a player while your colleague doesn't like him, or that scout may not think too highly of him just because of certain factors. So yeah, it comes down, like I said, doing the research on them and really watching film. I think that's a very big role here in the process, and what I do, maybe that some agents don't do, because some guys just rely on different lists out there that you can see online, different draft projections. So I'd say we kind of start with that, and then also maybe look at like other awards or other accolades out there as well for that specific player, or just even trying to get a player in a sense. So you're looking at some of those top guys from those lists or from any awards that they're getting throughout their college career. And then after that, like I said, is watching film on those guys so you know what type of player they are. And then hopping on the phone. I mean, it's almost like cold calling people if you do have their phone number. But sometimes get that phone number. All right. So I can't give you the full recipe on how I grab my players through the different numbers. I know, hey, you got other listeners out there, and that's where the competition kind of lie here too, as far as like how you how are you basically getting the player's contact information. So there's different ways to kind of do it. You got to be creative, I would say, in that realm, to get that player's contact information, and then reaching out to those guys. You may not get a response back after that first call or that first message. It may take 2 or 3 or maybe 10. I mean, I have reached out to players almost 6, 7 times before I got a response from them. And then after that is basically just trying to sell yourself. I mean, because it's really a relationship type of business. And if that player or that potential client trusts you, that's big on it. And you just have to find those different ways, I would say, that's separating you from the competition that's out there. Because it's big age, so you're out to differentiate and your abilities and your services, and then just always kind of building value here at the end of the day. That's very big, building value with that client that you're recruiting. So you can be recruiting them for a couple of years. It could be a couple of months. Just all depends on your process and how much of a relationship you build with that potential client and how much trust that you have. So you gotta be creative, I would say, most things.
Can you talk about, of course, who are some of the big name people that you have on your as clients?
Yeah. So I don't have any big names as of yet that you guys could probably Google or already know about. I know the agency I'm with. I mean, the biggest ones that everyone know about is Joe Flacco. Of course, his name, and then maybe Cal Jusics. He's another big name like guy because he's a Pro Bowler, and that's what the agency I'm with. Like I said, I didn't personally represent them, but the agency I'm with does, and I consider all my guys a big name guys here in a sense because I wouldn't sign them if I didn't feel like they can be a big name or make a name for themselves. Like Sheldon Watson, C.J. Lewis, Darshawn McCullough, Andrew Rakers, Khalif Jackson, Tyler Johnson, all those guys, Chris Curry. Those are some of my first clients that really kind of gave me that opportunity to represent them in some capacity. So I'm going to shout them out, feel like they're a big name, and hey, hopefully I get that guy that you guys all know about once you do Google him or see him playing on TV like Pat Mahomes or something.
Can you talk about, of course, the process in the NFL Combine?
Yeah. So yeah, no combine this year, unfortunately. But with that, I mean, you have to be selected to the combine. So you have to, and when it comes down to selection, I mean, we don't necessarily have that control here in that process for the most part because it comes down to your play, and then also if the NFL sees you as a draft worthy prospect. So that's where most guys are going to the combine if the NFL see that specific player as a day one, day two, or day three type of pick. So they want to see them a little bit more in person. So of course that usually would have started about a month from now. And when it comes down to training, clients only have a certain amount of time to train. So with that, it's only about 6 to 8 weeks compared to an 8 to 12 week program when it comes down to a pro day. But you just have to be that guy and basically be selected by the NFL to go to the combine.
Can you talk about, of course, the process of helping college athletes, particular football, getting into the NFL?
Yeah, so really it comes down to like their film and their production. So as an agent, of course, I'm trying to put out as much information I have on my client if he is under the radar guy. So like even some of the guys I named before, it was really gathering a lot of their film, a lot of their information to push, excuse me, push to the scouts because they were under the radar and not many scouts or teams knew about them. I mean, they had some guys kind of reaching out and taking interest, but not everyone kind of knew them. So as us, I mean, again, we're pushing out that information to the scouts, to the GMs, like anyone that's dealing in that player personnel department for that team. And then after that, it really comes down to the player. If the player has the film, if they have, of course, the character, which is a very big thing here in the league, then the league is going to give them a chance or an opportunity where you get invited to a mini camp or a private workout or a training camp, or heck, you get drafted. And it doesn't matter what school you play at. It can be D1, D2, D3, NAIA, or even JUCO. You just have to have talent and dominate your level of your level of playing field. Now, of course, it is harder to get from a D3 or a D2 or NAI program to the NFL because, of course, they're looking at the top talent and the top competition. But and you see it every single year where you do have at least a handful of guys drafted and undrafted that's coming from that smaller school and making it to the league. So it all comes down to production and what you're kind of doing out there on the field at the end of the day. The eye in the sky doesn't lie. Film is the biggest thing.
So I heard on the Edward Davis Sports Agent podcast that you have a law degree. Can you talk about, of course, how that has helped your law degree in your sports agency?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I took that route. Reason being is because a lot of the bigger name agents have that, like the Drew Rosenhaus, the Lee Steinbergs, those guys that you always kind of hear in the news. So, decided to kind of go that route and attend law school. Graduated about 6 years ago now, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, when it comes down to it, when you're using like that law degree, like initially starting off like as a sports agent, you're not using it as much because you don't have a client. So in order for you to actually like negotiate a contract or read through contracts or draft contracts or amend contracts, then that's when that law degree will kind of come into play. So for like the listeners, or if you guys want to go to law school, hey, after that, you got to learn how to recruit, I would say, and really sell yourself in a sense, because you're trying to sell yourself to grab that client. Now, once you actually grab that client, then that's when you can utilize your law degree and all the skills that you have had during that time in law school or even after. So it comes down to that. And like I said, it is really on the negotiation side of things where I'm able to understand different points that need to be addressed at that point in time, where it could be another like term that's not as important during that time. So, and that's really with off the field opportunities where most of it will kind of come into play, because on the field and dealing with the NFL, the contracts are pretty much standard, especially as a rookie. Now, that second one, I haven't got to that level yet to negotiate a second contract, but of course, that is coming here soon. And I'll be using some type of expertise, I would say, in the legal field, but it's really going to come down to negotiations. A lot of the terms you'll kind of know as a certified agent, because that's what we have to study and know as the agent, law degree or not. So off the field is like the biggest thing, where you're knowing where you know how to negotiate other contracts when it comes down to marketing and endorsements. And then also when it comes down to branding, into the tax plan, into insurance, those type of things. Because although I don't practice those specific areas, I can speak to my client, okay, and you need to talk to a tax professional about this, because your taxes are being, of course, different in each and every state in a sense. And these are the type of laws that you may have to think about, or these are the type of deductions you probably receive just based on like the area or the position that you're in your life. All right, now you need to talk to somebody, a wills and estate lawyer. All right, you got to set up for, let's say you die, that happens. You got to have a life insurance policy. All right, you need to have a will. Where's your estate going to go to, just in case you suffer a big injury on the field that causes death? So it's really having that general knowledge, I would say, in those specific areas of the law to help my guys know how to navigate through life, especially in the criminal side. I mean, those guys may get in trouble, or they may have family members that's getting in trouble. So I can let them know, hey, this what could be potentially the penalty, or this is the case. So hey, you need to go talk to a criminal defense lawyer. So I have connections in these different areas of the law. So it kind of helps in that aspect of having that general knowledge, but then also letting them, hey, go seek a professional, because this is what you probably may face.
Who are some of the sports agents that inspired you to become a sports agent?
Yeah. So I would say inspirations, and it really just came, like, they're not like my mentors or guys I desire to be, but just kind of seeing them and how they operate and what they accomplish over the years. I will say Tory Dandy is one of them. David Mulugeta is another, Lee Steinberg, and then also Drew Rosenhaus and Scott Boras. So Scott Boras is not even an NFL guy. He's a baseball guy, but he's one of the top agents out there dealing with baseball. So those are probably like the five, just because of a lot of their accomplishments.
When it comes to, of course, you said that some of your people are like Drew Rosenhauer. Have you ever met Drew Rosenhauer while going to like a combine?
No, I mean, I ran across him. Never met him like in person at all. So yeah, and yeah, never met Rosenhaus, Dandy, Mugata. Steinberg, I met him just for a little bit, and then never met Boris. So we run across each other because we all have the same type of credentials, see each other, but it wasn't like a meet, sit down, talk. Because at the combine, we're there a lot of time for business. I would say trying to work with our guys. So yeah, we haven't had that sit down yet.
What advice would you give upcoming sports agents looking to get into the industry?
Yeah. I would say start now and find your route and what you want to do, because as a sports agent, like I said, there's so many different things that you can do as an agent in a sense. But of course, as a certified agent, you are capped by certain things that you can do just because you're under the NFLPA. So we have different rules and regulations on some of the things that we can and can't do to work with a potential athlete or a college athlete. So I would say find what you want to do here in that type of industry. If you just want to be a guy that negotiate contracts, hey, learn about really how to negotiate in a sense, and also how to sell yourself. If you want to be that agent that's negotiating contracts, but also want to deal in marketing, all right, learn how the marketing industry works. So really, I would say gain a lot of knowledge right now. And then also don't be afraid to partner with anybody or work for anybody, because in this industry, it takes that. I mean, my first couple of internships in this agency were for free. And it was more just, hey, I want to write scouting reports. I want to help you guys out, like research different guys. So really just starting at the bottom, I would say, of the whole industry or of that process to really kind of learn it. So yeah, that's the biggest thing, man, is really learn and understand that you have to grow in this industry there as well, because most guys will say, hey, who do you represent? All right, that's always a big. So if you're building the relationships and you're learning, then I would say you're going to have good ammo and a good background here in your pocket once you actually become an agent, because then you'll understand how to navigate through these different waters, and then also understand how to recruit. All right, so if you have these relationships already, and once you take that test, you may not have to recruit as hard. That guy could just trust you at the end of the day and eventually like sign with you. So that would be my biggest thing I would tell anyone is learn, be knowledgeable, be a sponge, and then also just go after it. You got to be relentless with this thing, and don't be afraid to get the no's all the time. It's going to happen, or no responses.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at James12Cooper. So that's at James12Cooper, or you can just search on my name, James Cooper. You'll probably find me, pull up on Instagram. And then on Twitter, it's NCSA_Coach James. So Twitter, NCSA_Coach James, Instagram, James12Cooper.
Thank you again, James, for your interview, and best of luck as a sports agent in the NFL.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate the opportunity, man. You have a good one.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, James, for your interview, and best of luck.
All right, you too as well, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.